The Viking longship cut through the dark water. Inside, a young woman sat with her hands tied. She was not going home. She was being taken to a strange land to marry a man she had never met, a man she did not choose, a man who took her as a prize after burning her village. This is the story that history books skip over, the story of unwilling brides in Viking marriages, women who had no choice, women who could not say no, women whose voices were silenced by tradition, by force, and by a culture that saw them as property to be traded and owned. What happened to these brides? How did they survive? What punishments waited if they refused? The answers have been hidden for over 1,000 years, until now. Hit that like button and subscribe to Reckoning History, because this journey into Viking history will reveal truths that have been censored, forgotten, and deliberately erased. Let's discover what really happened to unwilling brides in the Viking Age. We begin in the frozen forests of Scandinavia during the 8th century. Viking marriages were business deals, not love stories. Families negotiated bride prices like merchants haggling over grain. The father received payment in silver, livestock, or land in exchange for his daughter. The girl herself was rarely consulted. She might be as young as 12 when her father announced her marriage to a stranger. We explore the actual historical process through archaeological evidence and saga texts. The bride price, called the mund, determined a woman's value in cold economic terms. A wealthy jarl might pay 30 cows for a high-born bride. A poor farmer might trade 3 silver arm rings for a captive woman. In this chapter, we meet the reality behind the legend. We examine specific examples from Icelandic sagas where young women learned of their arranged marriages only days before the ceremony. We witness the preparation, the fear, and the complete lack of choice. Viking society viewed marriage as a way to build alliances, settle disputes, and increase wealth. The bride's feelings were irrelevant to these calculations. The ceremony was over. The feasting ended. Now came the moment every unwilling bride feared most. We enter the wedding chamber, a small room attached to the longhouse where the marriage would be consummated whether the bride agreed or not. Historical sources reveal that Viking culture had no concept of marital consent. Once the bride price was paid and vows were spoken, the husband owned his wife's body. Refusal was not an option. In this chapter, we examine what happened when brides resisted. Saga accounts mention women who fought, who screamed, who tried to escape. The punishments were swift and brutal. A husband could legally beat his wife into submission. He could lock her in a storage shed for days. He could humiliate her publicly to break her spirit. We also explore the tragic reality of captive brides, women taken during raids who became wives through force alone. Norse poetry contains haunting verses from the perspective of these captive women, though scholars rarely translate them for general audiences. The wedding night was not a celebration for unwilling brides. It was an assault, sanctioned by law and tradition. Morning came, and the unwilling bride's new life began. She now lived in her husband's longhouse, surrounded by his family, his other wives if he was wealthy enough to afford them, and his thralls. Her duties were endless: cooking, weaving, brewing ale, tending animals, raising children, managing slaves, and serving her husband's every need. But what happened when an unwilling bride refused these duties, when she spoke back, when she tried to run away? This chapter explores the daily reality of resistance and punishment. Viking law codes, preserved in texts like the Gragas from Iceland, spelled out a husband's rights in brutal detail. He could beat his wife for disobedience. He could divorce her and keep the bride price. He could sell her into slavery if she proved too troublesome. We examine archaeological evidence of women's injuries, healed fractures in arm bones consistent with defensive wounds, cracked ribs, damaged skulls. The skeletons tell stories that the sagas censored. We also discover the rare women who found ways to survive through cunning, through alliances with other women, through learning skills that made them too valuable to abuse freely. Survival required intelligence, endurance, and an ability to hide true feelings behind a mask of submission. Some unwilling brides tried to escape. They ran into the forests. They stowed away on trading ships. They sought protection from Christian monasteries as Viking territories gradually converted. But escape was nearly impossible, and the consequences for failure were horrifying. This chapter follows the fate of women who tried to flee. Viking law treated runaway wives as thieves who stole themselves from their rightful owners. Husbands could legally hunt their escaped wives and bring them back in chains. Community members who helped runaway brides faced heavy fines or outlawing. We examine specific historical cases. One saga tells of a woman named Hallgerdur who tried to leave her abusive husband. Her own family forced her to return. Another account describes a captive Irish bride who attempted to escape 3 times. After the 3rd attempt, her husband cut the tendons in her feet so she could never run again. The most successful escapes involved women who fled to newly Christian communities where the church offered limited sanctuary. But even then, bishops often negotiated the wife's return in exchange for promises of better treatment, promises that were rarely kept. For most unwilling brides, the longhouse was a prison with no walls, but equally impossible to escape. Why don't we learn these stories in school? Why do movies and television shows portray Viking marriages as romantic partnerships between shield maidens and noble warriors? This final chapter examines how history has been sanitized, how the suffering of unwilling Viking brides has been erased from popular understanding. We explore how 19th century scholars romanticized Viking culture, deliberately ignoring the brutal treatment of women to create heroic Norse mythology suitable for nationalistic purposes. We investigate how modern entertainment continues this tradition, showing strong Viking women who choose their husbands and fight beside them as equals. These women existed, but they were rare exceptions, not the norm. The archaeological and textual evidence reveals a darker reality that makes people uncomfortable. Museums display Viking artifacts, but rarely discuss what those artifacts meant for the women who used them. The iron chains found in longhouse excavations were not just for slaves. The injuries on female skeletons are explained away as accidents. The saga passages describing forced marriages are dismissed as exaggerations. But the truth remains in the ground, in the bones, in the words carefully preserved by medieval scribes who recorded what they saw. The unwilling brides of Viking marriages suffered in silence for centuries. Their voices were suppressed by the culture that abused them and censored by the historians who came after. Now, finally, their story can be told, completely, honestly, and without apology. This is the censored history of unwilling Viking brides, a testament to suffering, survival, and the human cost of a society that treated women as property.